Well, hello there, and welcome to another FrankieSense and More. This is a little bit different, isn't it? Because here I am all by myself. But I'm not really all by myself. I need to turn. There's something I gotta do. I gotta turn my Facebook volume down. Hold on one second, 'cause I gotta get to my Facebook, and then I gotta turn my volume down. Oh, here we go. Wait, where is Facebook and where's my volume? All right, I see this and I see that. There we go. All right, here we go. Now I'm in business. Now I'm cooking. Now we're cooking. Okay, so today is a different kind of a Frankie sense because it's still going. All right, different kind of Frankie sense because I am here with Brent Marchant. He is the Good Radio Network movie correspondent. We all know Brent. He comes on every month, and today he is with me, and I'm going to share my screen with you. Just give me one second here. I'm going to share my screen, and I want to be able to make sure I can see everybody here. This is a picture of Brent. We all know who he is. Brent is the author of 3 books: Get the Picture, Consciously Created Cinema, and The Third Reel. He is with us today, and we are going to the movies. We've never done a show all movie all day, but we're doing it today. And you all feel free to contact us and call me. And I'm going to actually put my Facebook back in case any of you guys want to ask questions while we're broadcasting. I think it's a good idea to have my Facebook here, but I'm going to minimize it a little bit. Excuse me, I have so many things to do as the engineer and the producer and doing all this stuff here. But I'm getting there. Brent, we're getting to you. 1 second. So here we are. Is it showing your picture here? Yeah, there we go. Cool. It's showing your picture, and I can see my Facebook, and I can see any of you guys if you want to join us and ask any questions. That's very cool. I like that. Technology is amazing, isn't it? Like, honestly. Okay, Brent, you're up to bat. We are going to be talking with the first movie, which is called The Shape of Water. What do you think? Is that a good place to start?
Well, first of all, let me say thanks for having me back on the show, and love to talk about movies because there's always lots to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes. So the first movie, The Shape of Water. This is a wonderful little picture. It's kind of a modern day fairy tale in many ways, kind of a fantasy. It's a story set in the early '60s about a secret government marine lab in which a mute custodial worker, played by Sally Hawkins, she sort of stumbles into a project where the people have brought in this creature that they found in the Amazon, and they're preparing to study it. And in many ways, the government people are not being very kind to the creature because they want to see if there's ways that they can, tap into its special abilities and perhaps, maybe even weaponize it. And she, takes pity on the way the creature is being treated and looks for ways to make its existence even better. And in the course of doing so, a very unusual friendship develops that eventually leads to something more than that. And she basically is faced with the idea of how far am I willing to go to be able to protect the well-being of this creature, given the odds that that's facing.
Well,
And then
I love Sally Hawkins. I fell in love with her in Maudie.
mm-hmm.
Just loved her in that. And Octavia Spencer also stars in this movie, who I adore. I mean, everything she's in, there's just something about her that's so special and just makes you love her. Just looking at her.
And the two of them have such a terrific chemistry together on the screen too.
Yeah.
The other thing I liked about this movie is that it's a movie that celebrates the underdog, because there are a lot of characters in this movie who are far from the mainstream. I mean, the character that Sally Hawkins plays, she's mute, so that kind of sets her apart. She's a woman who's, not exactly at that time was in a terribly empowered position
Sure.
of strength. Same thing with her coworker Octavia. She's a minority and a woman. Again, the same thing.
And cleaners.
Yeah, exactly. They get some assistance from from Sally Hawkins' neighbor, who is a middle-aged gay man. And of course, there's the creature himself, who is, certainly not even human.
Right.
But the thing is, these characters are, for the most part, very happy with their existence and very happy with their lives. And, it really runs counter to the people who are in charge, the people who are in power, like the security chief at this lab, played by Michael Shannon.
Yeah, he
The
tends to play that kind of role a lot. I think
yeah, I
he's a
mean,
little typecast, maybe. But
they're nasty and gnarly, and yet,
yeah,
they're the ones who've got the power, and they're the ones who are the least happy. So,
it makes me crazy a little bit how we see aliens or people who aren't like us, and our first reaction is to hurt them, or to just go on this, like he went, I don't know where you go, the jungles, and brought this guy back, and he goes, I brought you all the way back, and whatever, right? But why is it aliens or people who aren't exactly like us, our first response is to hurt them, to tear them apart
or,
and find out what makes them tick. Like, hello,
yeah,
like, that's so weird.
I was going to say to dissect them. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
dissect
like,
them.
leave the people be who they are.
It's like, it kind of reminds me, those extraterrestrial people, the people go, oh, I got taken up and I got probed, and yeah, okay, so that's what everybody's doing, figuring out, what are you? We'll just
Exactly.
instead of saying, hey, how's it going, like, where are you in your development or whatever. I mean, I think it shows where we are in our development, not too far along. When that's our reaction.
Well, someone asked me to describe this movie in terms of, if you had to like summarize it really quickly, what would you say about it? And I said, it's kind of like Beauty and the Beast meets E.T.
Yeah,
If you think of that combination, then you get a pretty good idea of what this movie is about. I mean, we're not talking an actual extraterrestrial, but we are talking somebody who's definitely not human. And you're talking about the creature's interaction with humans,
yeah.
and learning to find out what it means to be a good human or to be a bad human. And fortunately, the creature has an opportunity to meet people like the character that Sally Hawkins plays, to show that, that there are, we're not all wicked, we're not all terrible. There is some humanity in our humanness, and it's nice to see it come forth.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad to see, Sally have, maybe I just noticed her. I don't know. I mean, she's probably been doing movies a long time, but I'm glad to see her in another movie, because she's very expressive. Like, her, she doesn't need to talk. She's very expressive. She's got
Well,
that
she
kind
was
of
nominated for an Oscar a few years ago in a supporting role for Woody Allen's Blue Jasmine.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and she was also, I believe, in the first Paddington movie. So she has been around for a while, but this has really kind of been her year. I mean, with
Yeah.
Maudie and with this one, and she's getting a lot of recognition for it. And this movie is, it's a really strong contender for the Oscars this year. I would say it's probably one of the top three in contention for taking home the big prize. So.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's one for you guys to go see. I can't wait to go see The Shape of Water. I haven't seen it, but I saw the previews and I absolutely love them. And I think, yeah, you know what? We're going to go do that. We're going to go see that movie, because it's a pretty cool movie. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. The next one we are going to talk about, and we all know Gary Oldman just got an award for it, was The Darkest Hour. Our
Yes,
good friend Virgil.
this is really a very powerful performance, where he portrays Winston Churchill at the time when he's just starting to take over his reign as prime minister at the beginning of World War II. And I mean, his performance is it's like he's channeling, his character. He does it so thoroughly and so effectively. The movie itself basically shows the challenges that he faced coming into power, because he was not really the first choice, and also the fact that he was facing not only the war effort to try and sort that out, but also a lot of political infighting within British politics, because they were trying to look for ways to see if they could get rid of him as well.
Yep.
So it was certainly a very precarious path that he had to walk. But he was certainly very inspiring from the standpoint of learning how to think outside the box and try different things that can help him solve the problems that he's facing. It was interesting because many of his British colleagues were kind of willing to almost roll over and let let the enemy do what they wanted to do.
Absolutely, yeah. And
You
he
know,
and he was
and he said, we can't do that. We'll become like a German lapdog if we end up doing that. So we've got to stick to the fight here.
they actually put
And
him in office because they wanted him to lose so that they could go, oh, finally we got a scapegoat, someone we can blame all this shit
yes,
on, right? And
yes,
here he
exactly.
is, I've interviewed his grandson, I think 3 times now, Jonathan Sands, great grandson, sorry, about 3 times now, and love to hear what Jonathan has to say about the movie and about the portrayal of his as his great grandpapa, as he says. It would be very interesting. And Lily James and Kristen Scott Thomas, who I love, is also in this movie.
Yeah, it's got a very strong supporting cast and shows the few people who were actually willing to back him and support him at the time. Those two are among them. It's really a dynamic performance. Gary Oldman just won the Golden Globe for Best Dramatic Actor for this part. He also won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Leading Actor. I think he's probably going to sweep through award season because his performance is just really head and shoulders above everybody else who's being nominated. So, and it's good to see because he's a terrific actor who's been long overdue for this kind of recognition.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, he's only been nominated for an Oscar one other time, and he's given so many great performances over the years that it's really good to see him get his due. Now, as far as the movie is concerned, the only concern I had with it is that it does get to be a little too preoccupied with the British internal politics, I think, to kind of take away from the story. In the process, it becomes a little talky. So that's really my only criticism of it. But see it for his performance, if nothing else, because he's just terrific.
And we'll let folks know that you will be coming back. We will be talking about the Oscars in another, couple weeks.
Yes.
So you have your chance. Maybe we'll let you vote again this year and see who you think is going to win. But go out and see all these great movies. This is wonderful. We got a whole weekend coming up where you can just go to the movies and check out these really cool movies. Got a whole bunch of them, whole whack of them here for talk about. So next one up, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Woo!
Well, this has certainly been the movie that's been dominating a lot of the conversation over the past month or so. And it's been interesting to see the reaction to it because it has not been universally loved the way a lot of the other Star Wars movies have. And I find that kind of interesting because for me, I think this is the best one to come along in a long time. It would be too complicated to go into the plot, but basically, the idea here is that the franchise is kind of taking a turn. It's going in a new direction. And to a certain extent, it almost kind of had to do that given the fact that, the stars are aging or dying off, unfortunately. And if it wants to stay fresh and stay relevant, it needs to go in a new direction. And that's one thing that this movie does very effectively. I'll admit I was a little hesitant going in because I was not a particularly huge fan of the last two movies in the franchise. But this one really, I thought, did a terrific job of breathing some new life into it. I thought it was great for introducing and helping to bolster the development of characters that have been recently introduced in the last film. And I was really impressed with Mark Hamill's performance. I mean, he hasn't done a tremendous amount of screen work over the years since the original 3 movies, but this is, I think, some of the best work that he's done playing the aging Luke Skywalker. So it's a movie that's got action, it's got a spiritual component to it. It makes you think. It also features very prominently, very strongly empowered female characters. And that, I think, is where some of the criticism has come in. I hate to say it, but I think a lot of people have looked at it and said, well, we want it to be more like the old Star Wars. Well, that was, male dominated and kind of bombastic a lot of times, and this is bringing you a very different approach, very different outlook on things. So I really would encourage people to see it if they haven't already done so. It's great to look at. It's well acted, a lot of fun. So go see it.
And that stars Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, and as you said, Mark Hamill. This is a special FrankieSense and More. It's an all-movie FrankieSense and More, and I'm the voice that you're hearing over there because we can't see his pretty face anymore. It's Brent Marchant, and he has been our longtime movie correspondent critic, and he's amazing, and he just gives such fulsome reviews of these movies. So I think that if you want to go and see this or not. You really will. The next one on our list, let me see here, is, where are we going here? The Disaster Artist.
Yes. Boy, talk about unusual movies.
Yeah. I'm just going to share this screen here for a second so you guys can see it. Where is it here? Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy.
The Disaster Artist tells the backstory behind the making of what is often called probably the best good bad movie ever to come out of Hollywood. It's based on a little known director whose name was Tommy Wiseau, and he made a movie called The Room, which I have not seen, but from everything I've heard about it, is just so utterly awful that you can't help but laugh your butt off all the way through it.
I saw a little bit of it. Oh my gosh, it's like the worst movie you've ever seen. The worst everything.
James Franco plays the role of Tommy Wiseau, and the process that he went through to bring this creation of his into being. And it's interesting to see how he honestly thought he was creating a great piece of art as he was making this film. And everyone around him was just shaking their head going, I can't believe I'm even associated with this project. It's just so terrible. But it was because it was so terrible that it ended up developing like this cult following.
Yeah.
People
would
go to midnight shows of it. Yeah, he is.
He's a character. And he's so funny. And people are like, where are you from? Like, what's your accent? He goes, he would never tell anybody. He said New Orleans, Europe. He'll never tell anybody where he's from, still to today. And I was watching an interview with him and with James Franco, and Tommy comes out and he said, they said, what do you think about James' portrayal of you in this movie? He goes, oh, it was like 99.9%, perfect. And he goes, well, what was the 1% you didn't like? And he said, I think it was a little dark in the beginning, like the lighting. And he always wears sunglasses, and he watched the movie with dark sunglasses on. He goes, I think it's because you wear sunglasses. Really good. He's a character. He's very funny. But I think he knows he's not good, He's a character.
Well, and James, and James Franco really captures him to a T. I mean,
oh my God,
I've never been a terribly huge fan of James Franco. I've always felt like he's been kind of playing at movie making in a lot of ways, and it was good to see him do a part where you really get to see his true talents come through. And for his efforts, he ended up taking home the Golden Globe for Best Lead Actor in a Comedy. So, he really does a terrific job with this part.
How fun to do a movie with your brother,
Yeah.
Yeah, your brothers are in it.
And he also brings in an awful lot of people in small roles that you don't necessarily recognize right away. People like Sharon Stone, and it's great the way he's cast this film. I mean, it's just, terrifically done in many ways. It's still in theaters. It's been out for a little while, but it's really, it's fun, and it's actually kind of prompted sort of a renaissance for the movie it was based on too. The Room itself has actually started playing in theaters again, because people say, well, I want to go see this movie that this thing is based on now.
Have you ever been to the movie theater? I went to the movie theater, and I can't remember which movie it is, but you'll probably remember what it was. And we all sat down, and one of the, the movie people who worked there, they came to the front and they said, look, a lot of people have left this movie within the first 10 minutes. So if you want to leave this movie, you can do so now, and we'll give you your money back. No problem. Even do it in the first 10 minutes. But, if you stay, then you're on your own kind of thing. She goes, and it was a movie about making a movie. And, oh, geez, big actors in it, like big actors in it. And it was like the worst movie we ever saw. And we're like, oh my God. I thought, maybe these people are wrong. Like everybody walked out. Like who walks out of a movie, right? Oh yeah. I've never had anybody say that to me before in the movie theater. This is terrible. We're playing this movie, but yeah, we'll give you your money back if you don't want it. Stay.
The only two I can think of where a lot of people actually got up and walked out. One, and this is going back a few years, but one was The Exorcist. Because a lot of people were, scared to death watching it. And then also many years later, Showgirls.
It wasn't that. This had Halle Berry, and it had Dennis Quaid, and oh geez, who else was it? And Dennis Quaid was trying to get money to make a movie, or it was this other guy was trying to get money to make a movie, and Dennis wasn't a good. I mean, like a big stars, all like a big compilation of stars in this movie about this guy who wanted to make a bad movie kind of thing. I can't remember, but yeah, crazy. I thought, oh, it's got to be great. I love everybody in this movie. Yeah, they made it.
It must have been bad because I'm not.
You're not even coming through.
I'm not. No.
Yeah, crazy, huh? I know. All right, so The Disaster Artist. Go see it. Still playing. Okay, up next. Ooh, I, Tonya.
Okay, so we're talking about the movie that came up at the top of the list of my favorites for the year.
Really? Okay, great.
Yeah, I love this. It's actually there's a review of it on the current Movies with Meaning post on the Good Media Network website. This tells the story of Tonya Harding, the famous or infamous figure skater from the early '90s, who became involved in a huge scandal involving fellow skater Nancy Kerrigan, when some of her associates were linked to attacking her prior to competition.
Yeah.
But the thing with the story is it gives you background about Tonya's life and upbringing, and she had a hard time of it growing up. I mean, she lived with an abusive mother, and then she had an abusive husband, and to a certain extent, those things gave her an edge that typified the way she did her skating routines, which were not falling in line with the expectation of the, ultra feminine figure skater. And she was doing terrific work, and the judges were, shafting her for it because they're like, well, you're not really putting out the kind of image that we're trying to convey.
Yeah, she's skating to ZZ Top.
Yeah, exactly. Skating to ZZ Top and wearing blue nail polish and, all these kinds of things that really set her apart. And she also had a tremendous athleticism to her routines. I mean, she was the first skater to perform a triple axel jump in competition, which involves 3.5 revolutions. And I mean, that was something that, the prototypical little dainty princesses were not supposed to be doing, but you couldn't ignore it because she did it, and it's like, wow, look at what she just did,
It's interesting though, Brent. It's interesting that figure skating is an expensive sport, and she's definitely blue collar. So where did she get the money to skate, to become an Olympic level skater?
Well, she ended up getting, she got it bankrolled by her mother, who was a waitress who constantly reminded Tonya about, I'm doing everything I can so you can do this career that you want to do.
Okay.
And her mother, as portrayed in the film by Allison Janney, was an absolute
She's getting an award.
She was a beast. She was a beastly character. I mean, just really terrible. She kept lauding all of her hard work over Tonya when she was trying to, develop her art and so forth. But the film has an interesting format. It's told largely through a series of monologues and flashbacks. where you end up seeing each of the principal characters just kind of talking to the screen about how the story unfolded, and then it will cut to a recreation of the action. And many times, those recreations of the action will involve little asides from the characters as it's unfolding. Like there's one scene where Tanya is going after her husband with a shotgun after he beats her, and she looks at the camera at one point and said, "This never happened." You know.
I love it. Margot Robbie, love her so much.
Oh,
love
she
her.
was so good in this.
Now, did she skate?
Margot Robbie and Allison Janney as her mother.
Allison Janney.
I mean, they were both just
I heard she's getting an
outstanding.
award. Like, no doubt about it. Allison Janney's getting an award.
Yeah, she picked up the Golden Globe and the Critics' Choice Awards for Best Supporting Actress, and I think she might end up running the table during award season because she's just that good. I mean,
I love her.
This again is
fantastic.
Yeah, this is somebody else who's been overlooked for a long time and has been doing a lot of great work, and it's really nice to see her getting her due.
Yeah.
And she certainly does it in this performance because, I mean, you come out of the movie saying, "Oh God, I can't stand that woman." You know,
yeah, that's good.
But that's how effective she is in terms
that's
of.
Good. Hope she doesn't get shot. Don't shoot Allison.
Exactly.
It's a character. Okay. So did Margot really skate?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check the production notes to see that. But if she didn't, she sure as hell made it look pretty convincing.
Cool.
A lot of the cinematography during the skating sequences is really well done because it follows her around as if you're on the ice with her as she's doing the skating.
Yeah.
You really feel as though you were part of the routine as it's unfolding, and just tremendous work in that regard. I like this movie on so many levels. It's a very strong cautionary tale, but it's also wickedly funny, wonderfully paced, wonderfully edited. It's got a great soundtrack to it. The performances are outstanding. I mean, I didn't have really doubts about it going in, but I didn't think I was going to end up liking it as much as I did to put it at the top of my list of movies for 2017. I just really like this a lot.
Wow.
Now,
that's heavy.
Yeah. Now, if you are a sensitive viewer when it comes to things like language and, violence and things like that, yeah, you might want to skip it because it's definitely got an edge to it. But if you appreciate dark humor and you're okay with those kinds of things, go see this. It goes by at a breakneck pace, and it's just terrific on so many levels.
Awesome. I cannot wait to go see this movie. Which brings us up to our next one. Oh, and just to remind you guys, this is FrankieSense and More, and I'm talking to Brent Marchant, and I'm your host, Frankie Picasso. Hi. It's still January. It's still the beginning of 2018, and we're still learning and doing this new visual show, so it's pretty cool. Hopefully, very soon, Brent will be able to join us on camera. But right now, you're seeing the movie posters and pictures of the movies and the actors and myself back and forth, so that's kind of fun. We're going to talk about The Post now, which did star Meryl Streep.
The Post is it's the latest film from Steven Spielberg. It stars Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks, and tells the backstory behind the Washington Post's involvement in the publication of the Pentagon Papers in 1971. Documents that revealed a long history by the U.S. government of covering up its involvement in Vietnam, both before the war and during it.
Through 4 presidents.
Yeah. I mean, it's going all the way back to Truman and carrying on all the way up through Nixon. It was a very gutsy move on the part of the paper because it was in a rather precarious position financially at the time. It was in the process of getting ready to go public so that it could continue to stay afloat financially. And it was also a time when Nixon was cramping down on the media coverage of the war and of the publication of government secrets. The story was initially broke by the New York Times, and he came down on them like with a ton of bricks, and the Post kind of joined into the battle, and they were in danger of being, facing the same kind of punishment.
Yeah.
So
talk about the fourth estate, being shut up, like
exactly,
totally against the Constitution. Nixon.
Exactly. And I mean, in that regard, it's it's a movie that's still surprisingly relevant even today, given the state of journalism in the U.S. these days.
Yeah.
Um, but the film shows how everything plays out. Meryl Streep plays Katharine Graham, the publisher of the newspaper, who sort of fell into the role. It was certainly not something that she envisioned doing, but she was thrust into this position of having to make these huge decisions when she probably would have rather been, more comfortable hosting cocktail parties and things like that.
Well, she was a widow.
And
Her husband passed away.
actually, her husband committed
Oh,
suicide.
he committed suicide.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
wow.
so she was suddenly, in a very a position that she was not expecting to be in. But she wanted to keep the paper in the family,
Yeah,
and
it was her family's paper, not her husband's.
yeah, yeah, and actually, it was a bit of a surprise when the paper was initially handed over to her husband. But her father believed that her husband was a genius
Hmm.
in business and that he could do a good job with it. And apparently, he did. But I don't know if it was the strain of the job that got to him or what it was that exactly happened that eventually led to him taking his own life. But then she inherited it and was left to kind of keep it afloat after that. So
Hmm.
and Tom Hanks, he plays Ben Bradley, the executive editor of the paper, who is responsible for overseeing the journalistic aspects of this. And he naturally wanted to keep pushing and make sure that this got out as being a very strong First Amendment advocate. So you also have, in addition to all these other things going on, you have some kind of internal strife going on between the characters played by Streep and Hanks because they're sort of, at loggerheads with one another over what to do. He was saying, if you believe in the First Amendment, if you believe in the freedom of the press, if you believe in what American journalism stands for,
Hmm.
we have to fight this. We have to keep moving forward. So that's the basic premise of what the film tells. And
What did you think of
my
it?
overall, it gets better as it goes on. It's a little slow in the first 40 minutes or so because you're kind of getting the setup of the story, and it's a little belabored when it comes to
Yeah.
explaining the financial background of the paper and so forth. I think they could have cut through that a lot quicker, and it would have been a better picture because once you start getting into the heart of the matter in terms of how they got a hold of the documents to publish and the constitutional and ethical and legal rights that they had to contend with bringing these papers to press. That's when it really starts to get engaging.
I thought it was a
Um,
little boring. I did. I have to be honest. I thought it was a little boring. Tom Hanks, though, hardly recognized him right away. Which is kind of good. Um, and his name is escaping me right now. But if you're Better Call Saul fan, it was so great to see him in this movie.
oh, Bob
Yeah,
Odenkirk.
yeah, Bob
Yeah, he was
Odenkirk.
terrific.
Yeah, he was great. He was great, and I love him. So yeah, he's one of
Yeah,
my favorites.
I was a little underwhelmed by both Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks in this, which is
Yeah.
unusual for me to say that because I'm a big fan of both of them. Um, when I was watching this, I guess there's the inevitable tendency to want to compare Hanks's performance as Ben Bradley with
Mhm.
Jason Robards' performance as Ben Bradley in All the President's Men.
Yeah.
And because I thought, Jason Robards was sort of the definitive Ben Bradley character. Hanks tries real hard, but Bradley was a character who had an edge to him. And Tom Hanks, he's such a nice guy,
I know. I know. I
that,
know.
that I had a little trouble kind of being convinced that he was being as gritty as he maybe could have been,
Yeah.
portraying this character. So, but
I gotta give a shout out here.
it's
Hi, Ariane. Good to
it's
see
the kind of movie that I think is important to see for the message that it's conveying as much
you.
as anything. As I say, if you can make it through the first 40 minutes or so without, you know, being tempted to get up and walk out
Yeah.
or doze off,
Yeah.
I think you'll be fine with it. So
Yeah. It's not a bad movie. It's just not my favorite of the season. I know
not as good as
Swift.
it could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing that kind of surprised me. I mean, when the first awards of the season were announced, the National Board of Review, which is it's a awards that are basically on par, if not higher than the Oscars themselves. It took home the award for Best Picture, Best Actor, and Best Actress. I thought, ooh, this has got to be
Wow.
dynamite.
Wow.
And then when I went to see it, I was like, I like it, but
Yeah,
not that
not that
much,
much. Yeah, I was disappointed. I
So,
was disappointed. Okay, Molly's Game. Wow.
yeah, this is a fun one.
I love Jessica Chastain, man. She's like my new favorite.
And she's one of these people who can like slip into almost any role and just disappear into it like a chameleon in so many ways. I mean, in many ways, I almost kind of see her as like the new Meryl Streep.
Mm-hmm.
She's that effective and in terms of the roles that she takes on and participating in them. This tells the story of an Olympic class skier who had a career-ending injury and had to find something to do, and she ended up kind of stumbling into a very high-stakes poker game run by her boss at the job that she took. And she decided, you know what, I can do this for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So she ended up establishing her own high-stakes poker game with very high rollers. But in the process of doing so, she ended up getting involved with some rather unsavory characters. And
It's the nature of the
you know,
game.
yeah, Russian mobsters and all kinds of people who were just, not the kind of folks you necessarily want to associate with.
Yeah.
But in the course of all of this unfolding, she was having to contend with, why did I do this anyways? She just sort of found herself in the midst of it and then didn't seem to be able to find a way to get out of it. So she had to kind of question her motivations and so forth, as she was basically trying to save her neck financially and legally. And it brings up some very interesting issues, and related to things like the relationship she had with her family and her relationship with her lawyer, and even her relationship with herself. So, terrific performance by Jessica Chastain. Terrific supporting performances by people like Idris Elba and Kevin Costner.
And I love Idris Elba, and it's like his year too. Like he's been in so many movies.
Yeah.
So many movies.
Yeah, exactly.
This year. Yeah, or last year, the end of last year, I guess.
Now the only real criticism I had with this film is that it feels a little overwritten at times. It was written by Aaron Sorkin, who is best known for doing the TV show The West Wing and also movies like The Social Network and so forth. And some of the dialogue, it's snappy and it's clever, but it doesn't always sound as natural as I would like.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you can kind of overlook that aspect of it, I think you'll really enjoy it. But really, it's a long movie. I think it's like about 2 hours and 20 minutes. But it moves along it moves along at a breakneck pace because of the way it's written, the way it's edited, and just when you see all the various colorful characters who she's involved with during the course of this movie, it's a fascinating story. So
she plays an intense character really well. What was that movie last year she did where she had
The Zookeeper's Wife.
Not The Zookeeper's Wife, the one before that one, where just after it, where she was like a high-powered person. She had,
Miss Sloane.
Yeah, Miss Sloane. That's it. Yeah, really good movie.
Yeah, I'm really waiting for her to get her due at some point. I don't think it's going to come this year, but she's somebody who really deserves to get the kind of recognition that she's earned through the different parts.
I mean, The Zookeeper's Wife was so different, such a big departure from either of these two roles, and with the accent, she was very much like you said, brain dead right now. Who did we just talk about? Meryl Streep, just like Meryl Streep. Yeah, very, very. Yeah, she has that same capability to take on, the accents and like Meryl, could just walk into it.
Well, even when you go back to one of her first roles when she played kind of the ditzy Southern belle in the movie The Help. I mean, she's proven that she's got such a range that she can do so many different kinds of characters that she does, and she always does such a great job with it.
Yeah.
And again, you can add this one to her list.
Shout out to Sarah Hepburn. Hi, Sarah. Glad you could join us today. It's movie day. It's FrankieSense and More, special movie edition with our movie critic, Brent Marchant. And we have another movie to share with you. I'm going to just go back to my screen here so you can see the poster. Coming up now is, what's coming up now? Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool. Annette Bening.
Yes.
Ooh, love her. And
Yeah,
Julie
this
Walters.
one just,
She's one of my favorite.
This one was just released, and it tells the story of the final days of character actress Gloria Graham.
Mm-hmm.
She did a lot of movies back in the 40s and 50s. She's maybe best known for playing the character of the sort of scandalous Violet Bick in It's a Wonderful Life. She was kind of in many ways, she's often been described as kind of a Marilyn Monroe wannabe who never quite achieved the same kind of acclaim that Marilyn Monroe did.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, the story is set in the late 70s and early 80s when she was in her early 50s. And her career had sort of fallen on hard times, so she was always looking for whatever work she could get. And while she was in England, she ended up meeting and becoming involved with a younger man named Peter Turner, who was many, many years her junior. And they had this very kind of tumultuous kind of relationship, but it was obvious that the two of them really were just mad about one another. And the film follows the stormy relationship that they had during the last couple of years of her life, showing not only what she was going through and what he was going through, but the lengths that each of them was willing to go to make this relationship work because of the love that they felt for one another. And this is a movie that, to me, has really fallen under the radar in terms of the recognition it deserved. It did not pick up anything in terms of any kinds of nominations in the awards competitions until the BAFTA Awards, which are the British Oscars,
Mm-hmm.
were just announced about a week and a half ago, in which Annette Bening and her co-star Jamie Bell were both nominated for their lead performances. Annette Bening is just terrific in this role. I think this is probably
she's always terrific in every role.
Well, I think to me, in many ways, I think this may very well be the best screen performance she's ever given.
Really? Wow.
She's that good. I mean, when you look at the character of Gloria Graham through the movies that she's done over the years and so forth, she's somebody who it could be very easy to screw up mm-hmm. doing that part and not come across looking like a fool. And she ends up nailing it really just perfectly. It's a tearjerker in a lot of ways. So I mean, if you like good old-fashioned love stories, but you don't mind, maybe shedding a few tears while you're watching it, then this is definitely a movie for you. I mean, but the thing that I liked about it too is that it's not really terribly manipulative in getting the emotion out of you. It works really hard to get and earn those emotions.
So is Julie Walters Jamie Bell's mother in this movie?
Yes.
Okay.
And Vanessa Redgrave has a small part in it, playing Annette Bening's mother.
Okay.
So and the other thing that I find interesting about this movie is that one of the award season categories that I usually pay the least amount of attention to is the category of original song, because most people just don't really pay attention to movie songs as much as they did many years ago. But over the closing credits for this film, there is an original composition that was written and performed by Elvis Costello that is just dynamite, and I'm amazed that nobody's talking about it.
Wow.
It's a song, I believe it's called "Don't Look at Me That Way," and it's a very fitting song for the film. And I also like the fact that it really shows how much Elvis Costello has matured as a composer as well. So I'm, talking it up as much as I can, because I love the song. I love the way it fit into the film. and it's beautiful, just beautiful
I'm
film.
sure it'll come out. You know, I mean, between Diana Crawler's wife and Elvis, and I'm sure that they're not going to go into obscurity anytime soon.
So this is a fun movie. You might have to look a little bit hard for it because it's only playing in independent theaters at this point, and it's not getting a terribly wide release. Some markets it may not have even come out yet.
Yeah, I hate when they do that. You always get to see the best movies.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, being in a big city as I am, I get to see these things pretty much right when they come out. But I really enjoyed this one a lot. So I would say definitely go see it.
Well, Brent has presented some amazing movies here today. There's no reason for you to be bored. If you love movies like we love movies, you know, I guess first time I list, I don't know. I'm torn between The Shape of Water and I, Tonya, because I think both of them they're so different, but so beautiful. I know that I'll probably go see both of those this weekend. Hoping.
Well, they're both good. They're both good. I think you'll come away from it definitely very pleased with both of them. So
if you've listened to this broadcast, if you view this broadcast later on, let us know what movie you went to see. Let us know which one you liked, and come Oscars, you know, Brent's going to come back and we can play the voting game. Let's play the voting game. Why not? It'll be fun.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Brent, for coming on today and being my special guest all day. That's really cool. And thanks to
my pleasure.
Ariane and Sarah for tuning in live. It's good to see you girls here and everybody else. And I will be back on Tuesday with Mission Unstoppable. Again, we'll be live on Facebook Live and our new YouTube channel, which is the Good Media Network. And you still go to the Good Radio Network for your podcast. Take care, everybody. Talk to you soon.